Tyranitar up there on the upper left means Connor might only have one to work. It could be problematic. While Raikou on Caleb's side, nothing much else. He'll be able to draw Chorus Experiment later on. Pricing is okay. Again, these are the prizes you like to see when you have you're one of tech that you don't really need, that can stay in the prize, or if it's something that you have multiple copies of. Things should be fine here. Anything catch your eye, Ethan?
I think it's really the Raikou. I mean, it is in the deck for this Lugia matchup to be able to take that one-hit knockout onto Lugia VSTAR. To try and even this prize trade up, kind of get through the game quickly, really force out. It's one of the situations where, yeah, you're even trading, but you're also not forcing certain attacks like Craglanche to come back. So that's one thing I'll keep my eye on. Of course, Caleb does run that Hisuian Heavy Ball. We'll kick things off, and this is a textbook Lost Box hand. Double Battle VIP Pass, Nest Ball, Chorus for next turn, starting Comfey in the active. What more could you want here?
Exactly what we need to see here at the last round of the last Swiss round of the Milwaukee Regional Championship. As Battle VIP Pass, the grab should be, if I had to guess, a combination of Comfey, Greninja, and maybe even a Cramorant for next turn, or potentially just more Comfey, depending on how many switch options Caleb still has in his hand. But here we do see Caleb just going through the deck. Again, hallmark of a great player, realizing what resources I have to work with, and there's no other deck that is important, right? Knowing what you have as a Lost Box, especially when you want to go down to 0 cards left in the deck, you just have to know what's in your prizes.
It's good, crucial information. Caleb taking the time, just note down everything, I'm sure. Catch that Raikou is in the prize cards. Catch that one of those Chorus's Experiment are also prized. And from there, it's really just making sure you have the resources to go about. I expect to see a bench slot opened up because, again, having that Raikou as an option turn 2 is really strong. This Lugia deck relies on things like Capturing Aroma to find Pokemon, and when you're not flipping exactly how you like and you can't get 2 Lugia down, it can be a little bit risky when your opponent has a Pokemon like Raikou, like Dragonite, take these one-hit knockouts quickly and early on in the game.
That is true. Second Battle VIP Pass being played now. Again, one of the most powerful cards in the game, only on the first turn of the game, able to find 2 basic Pokemon. And if you're playing 2, I know you're having a good time. Looks like ops the bench, only 1 Comfey there, not using it for full effect. Technically, that Battle VIP Pass was a Nest Ball. Let's see what else Caleb decides to play here. Again, just taking down notes.
I think the Cramorant might be in the hand. I feel like Cramorant's a pretty good grab if you have it. Of course, it is, again, weird with how you want to play the bench space out, but understands I want to use a lot of flower selecting early on in the game. It looks like it's not, but there is a Nest Ball potential as well. So Caleb is going to start out with flower selecting, does have an energy card in hand, but wants to just save it and see what these 2 cards look like just in case it's worth pivoting to get an extra card in the Lost Zone. And choice between Dragonite, solid card in this matchup, of course, being able to knock out Tyranitar, as long as there's nothing like a single strike energy on it. Another choice here with Caleb, do you concealed cards this energy away, or do you use it to retreat? I have to imagine retreating here is probably the better choice, just in case you don't draw on anything. Getting to these even cards in the Lost Zone just gives you a little bit more potential as you're working through your turns.
There we go. We're going to see another flower selecting here. Another, hopefully not too tough a choice. Looks like it's going to be an energy, and I believe I saw it was blue. Could it be a Cramorant?
I think it's a Cramorant. And this, again, is just, for me, why would Caleb, if he really wants this card over it, not grab it off the Battle VIP Pass? And maybe choice or choice not. It's not necessarily going to be the plan that Caleb's going for. Choosing the Lost Zone, keeping the water energy. It's important to making sure you have those energy in the deck. You can't really Lost Zone more than 2, 3 energy because you only play 13, you only play 11 energy in this deck. You need those to get the big Aqua Storm off at the end of the game.
There we go. Concealed cards does find a Chorus and a Forest Seal Stone. Not too bad of a turn. Opts to bench the Dragonite with the Forest Seal Stone. Again, very powerful tool card there. Half a Star Birth, but opts to not use it just yet. Again, Lugia isn't known to playing Lost Vacuum, so that should be fine.
And I like this play here from Caleb. Just wants to prep against something like a Judge to make sure he can play Chorus next turn, draw through the deck, and get to those 7 cards in the Lost Zone to activate something like Mirage Gate. Not a lot of Pokemon besides Tyranitar. It's the only Pokemon that can knock out this Dragonite that makes sense, besides something like the single strike Urshifu VMAX. So wants to prioritize having this Dragonite established because Raikou is in the prize cards.
Yes, there we go. We're going to see Connor here does Ultra Ball away 1 Archeops for another. Makes me think maybe we have another Ultra Ball in hand, or potentially a Professor's Research, and that means we're halfway there. That means there's 2 Archeopses in the discard pile potentially. And yeah, it's exactly what was grabbed. We're going to shuffle the deck real quick there. And again, both players opt to a pretty good start. And this is exactly what we want to see. We want to see a good game here. Again, we mentioned earlier, we like the Dragonite on the bench. Yet without the Raikou, you still threaten, right? You still can threaten to knock out Collapse Stadium being played. And Professor's Research. Let's see what we draw off the 7. A Mesa goes up. A couple of Boss's Orders. There's a Lugia VSTAR. So we do have the attack. But we have to find second Lugia at this spot, right?
I feel like that's got to be the choice. Of course, you can still utilize Read the Wind to draw some more cards this turn, and you got your main goal accomplished. Get those Archeops in the discard pile. Main question for me is what resources can you afford to get rid of off this Ultra Ball? You want to keep Boss's Orders around, especially with the Dragonite, that 2-price Pokemon with a Forest Seal Stone attached to it on the bench. You also got to keep your energy cards because you're constantly pivoting in and out. You may need to pick things up with Penny. You may need to play some different sort of style of cards to play around that. But it is just going to be the Ultra Ball. Like you said, putting Lugia V down, making sure Summoning Star will be a potential option the following turn. This is sort of the Lugia pipeline, right? Get Archeops in the discard pile, prep yourself for the next turn. Connor's done a great job. Not going to be relying off Luminion to get this Summoning Star the following turn. Putting that Pokemon into play is a big liability.
That's true, as Connor just ends his turn with a Read the Wind. Again, you get to discard 1 card, draw 3. Needs to draw into a potential supporter there, but yeah, he does find a Professor's Research and options as well if he opts to decide to use the Ultra Ball or whatnot. As we move over back to Caleb, there's the Chorus Experiment. Great to see. Again, very powerful card, gets to refill the hand, but also, just as importantly, send 2 cards to the Lost Zone. That will put us at 4, which is, typically that's important, but right now the Cramorant's in the Lost Zone. So the magic number Caleb does want to hit is going to be 7 this turn.
We'll get to 4 with this Chorus's Experiment. Has 2 more flower selectings to utilize. I really didn't want to get rid of that Sableye, but with the other choices in hand, you need to keep Mirage Gate and you want to keep these pivoting cards to make sure that you've got enough switching options. Does draw into the second copy of Sableye with the Concealed Cards ability, and it's flower selecting time. We're going to see what choices Caleb has to work with. The easy choice there, getting rid of the Nest Ball, keeping those energy cards around for later on. Now the question, do you want to attack with Dragonite this turn? I feel like you want to be able to take the aggression. Your Cramorant is gone. You've got no better attacker to use. You might as well take prize cards. And again, the only thing that can knock this Dragonite out is something like the Single Strike Tyranitar. And with how the board looks like right now, if that wants to be a potential, not only does this Lugia have to find a way to retreat, but the energies also have to be there to utilize on Primal Turbo. There's going to be a few pieces that need to be found.
That's true, as Escape Rope being played here, forcing the other Lugia to the active as Caleb just flower selects. More importantly, the Gift Energy is now on the bench. I'm not sure how important that is. I didn't quite get to see how big Connor Finton's hand, just in case Caleb decides to take a knockout. At least it's a knockout that doesn't draw Connor some cards.
So there's a choice here for Caleb. It does have the Lost Vacuum and can actually get rid of something like the Collapse Stadium because that will put him to 7 cards, which is enough. But that actually just has the Forest Seal Stone, so this works out very nicely. Forest Seal Stone can grab something like the Water Energy out of the deck if there's not that attachment yet, if you don't want to burn 2 Mirage Gate. Does also potentially have the ability to grab 1 more switching card, but at this point, it's really just find a way to attack with Dragonite. So far, I'd say Caleb hasn't had the worst flower selectings to get rid of. Lost Zone looks pretty fair. A couple Battle VIP Pass in there, a couple Nest Ball cards that you're not going to really need later on in the game. And actually, look at this hand. The Water Energy is already there. Does also have Mirage Gate, so this might just be a switching card to put into the hand. And be a little sneaky not showing us, and it is going to be that switch card selected off the Forest Seal Stone.
Definitely. All right. So we do have the switch card. That means we can go into the Dragonite. It's going to be the Lost Vacuum there. Let's see what Caleb decides to send to the Lost Zone. It's going to be that Nest Ball and the Forest Seal Stone. Opts to keep the Collapse Stadium as Mirage Gate being played.
I like keeping Collapse Stadium because Connor wants to have a lot of Pokemon down potentially in play. The double Archeops, potentially Radiant Serena as well, Tyranitar. There's a lot of options, and Collapse Stadium being in play as well means that if Connor's playing multiple copies, he can't play another one from his hand to bump it. We'll have to utilize something like the Lugia VSTAR to discard that Stadium in order to put another one into play. But Caleb's done exactly what he wants to here. 250 damage with Dragonite now online. Be able to see the knockout on the Lugia V. Caleb striking first, and Connor doesn't have a response as of right now to this Dragon Gale.
Yes, Dragonite taking 2 prizes there. That means Caleb this is the flowchart, right? Now we're down to 4, and you know what that means. All we have to do is set up some damage on the board in a way that we can Aqua Storm potentially, but Caleb has time here. Connor playing that capturing Aroma, getting tails. That means we could find another attacker. You mentioned earlier, like the Tyranitar. It's the only thing that can take out the Dragonite, and that's exactly what we're going to see.
Gonna be the choice. Got to kind of deal with this Dragonite. Caleb took so much time, so many resources to build this Pokemon up. It's got to be how you're going to deal with it. Perfect response right away. Did get those 2 Archeops in the discard pile that first turn of the game, so can utilize Summoning Star, put them into play. And we see one of the strongest abilities in the format, Primal Turbo on this Archeops, grabbing the single strike energy out of the deck, putting them on Tyranitar, getting this Pokemon powered up in a single turn, as long as there's also something like an attachment to be able to retreat this active Lugia VSTAR.
Yeah, all we need here is an energy in hand, because again, the Archeopses do have to power up. The Tyranitar does require 4 energy there to really take a knockout. I'm actually trying to think of the math if maybe even if you attach a double turbo, you're going to have to use a second Archeops anyway. So it really did have to be both. Very curious now if Connor, you just have to have it in the hand. Otherwise, you'd probably be attacking with the Lugia, as we do see there is a double turbo in hand. And since double turbo does count as 2 energies, that can pay for the retreat cost by itself. That means we get to keep the gift energy. Always good to conserve those special energies, right? As we do retreat there onto the Tyranitar. And we're just going to see a single strike crush for 280 damage. That's enough to knock out a V-Star, but you also have to discard the top 5 cards of your deck. I didn't quite get an Archeops discarded. What else? Oh, top 4, excuse me. What else was discarded here?
Burnett. Just working out something specific. A big thing that I want to point out as well is the energy card right here, this gift energy. I would really like to see this be something potentially like the V-Guard energy. That way, if Caleb has something like Clara to bring back Dragonite and then take another knockout on Tyranitar, things could definitely get a little bit dicey in terms of not being able to prevent that knockout from happening. But I think Connor has a good understanding of what's happening here. But I think some card potentially was misplayed potentially. I think we're just figuring out exactly what happens here. But looks like everything's resolved itself. We did see too many crucial resources get discarded. I think Burnett, Lugia VSTAR, Archeops, cards that you're more than okay to have go down this point. And action's back on Caleb. Connor's tied things up, has this Tyranitar fully powered up. Again, we talked about Single Strike Crush. Cragalanche is great against this Lost Zone deck. Getting rid of and milling some of these resources. I have to imagine if you're Caleb here, you have the potential to start Lost Mining. I don't think that's terrible. You haven't seen Radiant Serena hit the board yet. You do have the potential for something like a Kyogre play in the next couple of turns, and that is the end game in this matchup, so it feels like Caleb is just going to be doing everything he can to get through this deck. Has Colress or Clara, but here's the counting. Let's see how many cards are left in the deck. I don't think we're in Kyogre range just yet, but listen, I look down, I look back up, and the deck has 2 cards left in it, and he's ready to just Aqua Storm on everybody out here.
There's still a lot. There's a ways to go. Right now, 8 cards in the Lost Zone, potentially 9 after this. Flower selecting, easy choice again with that Nest Ball. Has that Chorus in hand, so we're going to go up to 11 quite shortly here. Has the Pokestop as well. That's another way to really start discarding cards. And, even Connor can even help out here if opts to go with the Cragalanche. But, at that point, you don't have a choice. But we'll have to see here what else we have. It's going to be the Pokestop. Just a draw 3. Why not?
Just a draw 3 in this deck. And listen, he just wants it more than him, right? He just wants to get 3 item cards. And those were great items as well. Found double Mirage Gate off of that. Has access to Clara now, and that's a big grab as well, because that means this Clara can grab Dragonite back from the discard pile. The Energy Recycler can put these energy cards back in, playing the Mirage Gate, guaranteeing the attachment for turn from Clara, and because V-Guard energy didn't come down this Tyranitar, it's going to be able to be knocked out by this Dragonite.
What value from a single Dragonite. I'm sure Caleb's glad that wasn't prize. Raikou can't take this knockout on the Tyranitar, right? And let's see if that's the exact play Caleb decides to go for. Again, that's the thing with Lost Box, right? You have so many options to go with. I wouldn't blame Caleb for really just deciding to put on damage, but you know what's even better than damage? Knockouts.
That's exactly what you want. Again, any damage counters that stay on, Radiant Serena down the line can heal those off, and then you get into this weird situation where your work is slowly being erased off the board. But just like we mentioned, Clara putting the 2 energy cards and the Dragonite back into the hand, and I see the Energy Recycler, and we know those 2 Mirage Gate are in the hand off that Pokestop.
Exactly. Again, yep, Dragonite, just such an ideal attacker. Dragon's Gale, 250 damage. I wonder why Connor opted not to put a V-Guard, because there's that option, right? Tyranitar only requires 2 Dark Energy, so it really is paid off by the single strike energy. We could have had both Gift and the V-Guard energy attached there, but maybe just felt comfortable that the Dragonite was knocked out. There was the energy recycler shuffling up a couple of energies into the deck, but they're not going to stay in the deck. As Mirage Gate is played, attaches it to the Dragonite, and yeah, we're going to see Dragon's Gale in a bit. Do we have a switch? I'm pretty sure we do.
Yeah, switch card is in the hand, so Caleb does have that option to pivot out. Even if he wanted to, he could play another Mirage Gate, but look how stacked this hand is. Multiple Colress Kyogre already there, and the switch card to heal this damage off, and more importantly, pivot this Dragonite into the active. Dragon's Gale back-to-back, taking 4 prize cards. Dragonite putting in work. We don't need Raikou at all. He's going to do it himself. And look, I'm supporting him today. You saw I have my Dragonair pin on. You got to see Dragonite shine out here. It's one of my favorites, so listen, I'm all for him being in the spotlight.
100%. And something I have to mention here, Ethan, is the other Tyranitar is prized. How do we deal with the Dragonite?
That's true. There's no other Tyranitar. The second one still in the 4 prize cards for Connor. And I mean, listen, if you just sort of let this take another hit, and even if you're Connor in this position, a tie doesn't really do you any well. If you feel like you can't win this end game, do you just save as much time as you can and try to force faster games? Just attacking this Dragonite doesn't really do anything for you.
Is there a certain combination of maybe the Urshifu V with literally all the single strike energy?
I think what Connor has to do here potentially is boss's orders, take a knockout on this Kyogre that just came down, and hope that he draws into something like the Tyranitar of the prizes. But
there's an interesting card I just saw there, Thornton. That could be a way to get
look at that
Tyranitar back into play for sure.
I think that has to be the only option here. But the problem about Thornton is Thornton only works on basic Pokemon, right? You can only utilize Thornton to bring this basic Pokemon and switch it out. And since this Lugia VSTAR is essentially an evolution Pokemon, now you can just Lumineon, grab the Thornton, and then Lumineon the Thornton and put it into play. But at that point, you're not disrupting this hand, so what can you really do with this?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this seems like value. You get the Lumineon out of play, and you get an attacker. But yeah, would have loved to see a judge, especially with Caleb's hand, as we do see the Thornton played into the Tyranitar.
And the thing that's not great about this too is, you just put the Lumineon on the discard pile, which means Echoing Horn can bring it back. And Connor understands he's got to win 2 games here if he wants to advance the top cut. He's going to scoop things up. Caleb Gedemer taking game 1.
Ooh, wow, Ethan, these are pro players. When you just realize that, I have no shot here, and I can't play for the tie, I'm going to give myself the most opportunity to really take a game. And against Lost Box, that's a lot of time I'm going to need. So just realizing that fact, even if there were plays. He had a knockout. He had a knockout on the Dragonite, but that's not going to be enough.
I think Connor is wishing at this point that Caleb Gedemer finds an unplayable hand. 2 fully played out games. It's going to be tough to finish in 33 minutes, but both these players want to play things out. Both want to win. Ties, at this point, really don't do them well. I'm sure both these players are in the top 16 race in terms of making it to a day 2 at the World Championships. You got to imagine they're looking for something more than a top 16, top 32 finish. They're looking for more regional wins to solidify themselves a spot in those rankings.
Oh no, I feel it here, Ethan. Just looking at both these players, they want to go home a champion. And they're in the best spot to be able to do it. So I'm sure both these players are just really playing their best, playing their hearts out. And again, they're playing some of the best decks in format. Lost Box against Lugia. Haven't quite seen the Aqua Storm just yet, but we'll see about this round. As both players still shuffling up, looks like Connor does have a basic there. And again, what do you think? Connor has to do to adjust to this?
Mainly, it's going to be maybe looking to get the V-Guard on the Tyranitar. I mean, it was kind of an unfortunate situation where Connor had to take 2 turns to utilize Read the Wind there, or had to utilize Read the Wind the second turn, and Caleb just sort of found everything he needed to. Was just able to get the turn 2 Dragon's Gale. There's not a lot you can do against that when you're going to be just allowing your opponent to take prize cards, and you're forced to go with this Tyranitar to respond. So I think the main thing was V-Guard energy. I think this game is completely different there. If Connor finds V-Guard, then utilizes something like Radiant Serena to heal the damage off, it becomes a sort of a very, very different game in a situation like that. But, I mean, we've been talking about Radiant Serena this entire time, and I sort of just default in my head that Radiant Serena's in the deck. But Connor's not even playing a card like Radiant Serena. There's no way to heal off any of these Archeops.
Connor doesn't have a Radiant Pokemon.
No, it's not in here.
That is interesting. And, well, Connor's going to start us off. Does have the Nest Ball, has a Lugia. I didn't quite get to peep the hand. I got to see the prizes a little bit there. Nothing too detrimental, I believe.
Yeah, but I mean, that actually brings up a really interesting point, is if Caleb sort of starts to understand that there is no Radiant Serena in the deck, you can kind of play this matchup potentially a little bit differently. You can always Cramorant for 110 into Tyranitar and then finish it off with Sableye Lost Mine. But I don't think Caleb has that information. Otherwise, this becomes a completely different game.
Oh boy, I mean, isn't that such a good feeling when you, as a Lost Box player, when you just know your damage is going to stick? I believe Connor's not even playing something like a Penny. The only way to really get damage off the board is going to be filling up your bench and using a Collapse Stadium. And filling up your bench, that's also something Caleb would love to see, I'm sure. But you know what? Connor's here 11-3. I'm sure he's faced his fair share of Lost Box, and I want to see his game plan, as we do see Caleb just nest balling there for the Raikou. Things could get sketchy.
This start is solid, and it's always so scary when you're a Lugia player, you put one Lugia V into play, you've got 2 Pokemon, and your opponent's going second with Lost Box. Because I've watched enough games with this deck to know that if you find all the pieces, if you find 3 Flower Selectings, Colress's Experiment, and Lost Vacuum, Raikou can take a turn 1 knockout. Caleb's got this Battle VIP pass to put Comfey into play. Already has Colress in the hand. Listen, you would hate for this to happen in any match in the tournament, but on the win-in match, this is where Caleb's deck needs to clutch up. Give him these pieces. He's so close to making it into the top cut here at the Milwaukee Regional Championships.
It's so scary here, and at the same time, you're thinking, hey, you know what? My Lugia V is on the bench. It should be safe, you know? Normally, you attack the active, but stuff like Escape Rope can really force it into the active for sure. That means Caleb can, well, technically, Caleb can only play either 1 or 3 Escape Ropes to really move these Comfeys. That's something he has to add into his formulations to get those 7 cards in the Lost Zone. Things that could definitely help are probably things like the Forest Seal Stone. That's an easy, just 2 cards into the Lost Zone. We do have the Radiant Greninja already in hand, a couple of energies as well. We have an attachment for a turn if you want to, and the Mirage Gate. A lot of cards.
So many pieces in the hand. Has access to Mirage Gate, has access to concealed cards to start things off. Just utilizing that first. Drawn 2 cards, has Colress. A lot of it's going to come down to how many switching cards. Caleb can retreat once with this Comfey, needs to play 3 more switching cards to be able to get there. So we'll see if he has access to all of those. What do these 5 cards look like? Does have another Battle VIP pass. Importantly, finds the Forest Seal Stone. That will guarantee the 1 of Lost Vacuum out of the deck. Doesn't even need to play the second Battle Pass. What a great feeling is that?
That is true. If your opponent is sending a Battle VIP pass, turn 1 into the Lost Zone, I'd be sweating too. And but right now, looking at the hand, there's a lot of good stuff, but there's no switch cards yet.
No switch cards yet. Does have the guaranteed pivot with that attachment for turn. These are going to be some big flower selectings. What are the choices? Nest Ball going away.
Caleb, share it with us.
It's another Colress's Experiment. That's the choice. So I think you still manual retreat first. I think you can discard something like the Lightning Energy. You could also just straight up go for a guaranteed grab, but it feels like it's the hardest card to grab out of your deck for this combo is something like the Forest Seal Stone, or rather to grab the Lost Vacuum to get rid of the Forest Seal Stone. You've got sort of 2 approaches. Do you go all in on this Raikou play, or do you just kind of go 50-50? Do you grab something like the Cramorant and attack with that this turn? I think either play is fine, but I think you've at least got to still utilize as many flower selectings as possible, but it's not going to be it. We're just going to see this pass the turn over, power Raikou up, and say, next turn, I'm getting ready. I know you have no Archeops in your discard pile, so it's so unlikely that you're going to be able to attack me next turn and utilize boss's orders, and uh-oh, we're seeing the impact energy come onto Urshifu, and just a judge, and that's it.
Ooh, okay. Off a judge, you need double Archeops Ultra Ball. You get it every time,
this
right,
is where this is what dreams are made of, right, Wancho? Listen, if there's any time for Lugia to not do Lugia things and actually find both those pieces, it's here now. Connor already on the back foot. Your opponent just had such a solid start. They've got the guaranteed Colress's Experiment if they want it off of something like the Forest Seal Stone on Caleb's side. You got to clutch up. There needs to be some Archeops in this hand. And a way to discard them with Ultra Ball.
Definitely. As, again, I'm sure Caleb is breathing a sigh of relief that he does have the Forest Seal Stone to fall back on. Oh, is it going to happen?
No, it's not there.
I thought the dream was live.
Does luckily get the second Lugia down. If no Lugia came down, then I think big alarm bells were going off in Connor's head on how to still win this game. But we're not going to see the laser focus. There's no basic fighting energy in the deck for that or single strike Urshifu to grab. So action back on Caleb, getting an extra turn. Connor not putting any pressure on in terms of prize cards or attacking force.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if there's a lot of cards happening in the hand besides those 3.
Yeah, looks. But right now, Caleb's hand, on the other hand, looking really good. Gets a cold experiment off the judge. There's a couple of good cards there in the hand, but the one that's probably the most important to me is that energy, because right now, Caleb has a knockout with the escape rope energy attachment potentially, and can still keep digging as well with the concealed cards, with the flower selecting. Let's see what we get here. Just, it's going to be another course experiment and a battle VIP pass. Course experiment really good, but nothing that can be played at the moment. Another concealed cards, another flower selecting there. Looks like that one's a tough choice. It went back on top of the deck for a bit.
I think with how slow your opponent's starting, you kind of just want to attack with Raikou this turn because it's so unlikely they're going to be able to find this resource. But with how this board has gone, it may be up to something like a... Ooh, this is actually really tough.
It might just be a Mirage.
There's no Mirage Gate in this hand. So you can play this Escape Rope, utilize one more flower selecting, and then put yourself to 7 cards in the Lost Zone. But the issue with that is what else do you have in this position? Just going to be the Escape Rope, bringing up this, and are we fleet footing? Is that it? All right, fleet foot for 1. Do we see the energy?
We still have the V-Star.
No. But the V-Star is there, yeah.
Okay.
So it's all good. V-Star power will be able to grab the energy card out. You really don't want to use it on something that's you have so many of in this deck, so many pieces to find. But listen, if it means you're getting this knockout, if there's not a lot going on Connor's side, you're going to play aggressive. You're going to push your advantage in this situation.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. Sometimes that very powerful Star Alchemy V-Star power is just an energy search, as we do see the energy grab, energy attachment there on to the Raikou. And right now, Lightning Rondo is doing just more than enough damage onto the Lugia to take the knockout, and Caleb should be up 2 prizes here. Let's see if he decides to play anything else. Grip is looking good, has the Echoing Horn too for later. I believe that was one of the choices in the flower selectings. Benches the Cramorant as well, so we have a backup attacker just in case Raikou goes down, as there it is, Lightning Rondo for the knockout on the Lugia. 2 prizes
Big top deck, though, finds Professor's Research off the top. There was nothing else going on in this hand. Discard this Archeops, and if Connor didn't top deck anything there, he was in big trouble. Still has to find something like Ultra Ball, like another Archeops, to be able to discard it to get full effect off the Summoning Star. Do we see it? We do!
Yeah, there's an Ultra Ball.
Ultra Ball and Archeops.
All right.
Potentially just play something like this, Capturing Aroma, to find another piece out of the deck that he doesn't need. Tails will get a basic Pokemon, but Connor's at least going to be able to attack this turn, can use Summoning Star and get both these Archeops into play. Start utilizing Primal Turbo to power these Pokemon up.
Definitely. What attacker do you go with here if you're Connor? Just go with the Urshifu that's already in the active. I'm thinking that's also a liability.
It's pretty interesting how you can go about this. There is like a really weird world where I think if you can Ultra Ball for the VMAX and then beat down and knock out the Raikou, but the problem is, do you really want to put a 330 HP Pokemon into play? Doesn't really feel great, especially if your opponent can just knock that out and then even just Sableye to take the last prize. I don't think you can afford to take that route, so we may see this potentially pivot out into something like one of the 1 prize Pokemon. I don't think Stonejourner is terrible in this position. A Lugia V-Star will also get the job done. You're really just trying to understand how Caleb wants to take this, and the problem is there's so much flexibility on his end. He can just take a knockout onto another 1 prize Pokemon and then utilize Aqua Storm to take the prizes. He could even just wait the entire game, damage this V-Star, and then Aqua Storm until the Urshifu, because it's either going to be in play, it's going to VMAX, or he can Echoing and Horn it back from the discard pile.
There we go. We do see Summoning Star, one of the most powerful V-Star powers in the game, getting 2 Archeops into play. There we go. We're going to see Primal Turbo. It's going to be the Urshifu. That's going to be the attacker here. And, man, Ethan, what a day and age we live in. When you mentioned earlier in one statement, putting a 330 HP Pokemon in play is a liability. Wow.
We've come a long way in the Pokemon TCG. Playing these old formats has definitely shown me a little bit of a history lesson on how cards have evolved over time. And I think that really is an interesting choice. Do you want to Impact Blow and just open the door up for your opponent to utilize Dragonite, or do you want to evolve this? And it seems like Connor taking another risk, hoping that Caleb is not able to commit enough resources to take a knockout with Dragonite and put himself to 2 prize cards. It is going to be Impact Blow, dealing 200 damage plus the weakness, 400, taking the knockout.
Ooh, that's big damage there onto the Raikou. More than enough. But yeah, and Connor takes their first 2 prizes of the game, and Caleb promotes a Comfey, just as expected.
There is a lot going on in this hand. Chorus, several switch cards. I think the Dragonite play is what's lining up in my head the most. Is something that you just kind of want to go for in a position like this. You knock out the Urshifu, and you're back in the same situation as the game before. Do you power up a Tyranitar and attack with that? Well, if that's the case, you're putting a low HP 2-prize Pokemon in play. So because Connor's not playing anything like Radiant Serena to heal, Lost Mine plus Cramorant can get the job done. You can also just attack into it again at some point with Dragonite. But for now, Caleb going to try to set this up. Concealed cards plus Chorus, continuing to dig through the deck, wants to have low cards in deck so that this Aqua Storm play is available towards the end of this game.
All right, looks like, yeah, Chorus Experiment being played there. One of them is an easy choice for Sealstone since the V-Star power already has been used. Not really that useful there. Looks like Sableye is going to be the other send 2 here. And right now, that means we are, again, more than enough to use those Mirage Gates. But what do we have here? Again, we do have Pokestops. We can keep digging. Don't really have a Pokemon search here. Again, with that big of a hand, the world should be your oyster. Ooh. There's a Nest Ball, but...
It's tough, though, because you already got rid of so many Nest Ball. You found one of your last ways to search out Dragonite, but can you afford to get rid of this Energy Recycler? The issue is you're playing 4 in your deck, but I think if Caleb wants to attack with Dragonite this turn, he has to play this Energy Recycler, which means he's only left with 1 in deck, or rather 1 in the hand. And I think that might be too much, but maybe this is a game where Caleb doesn't even need to Aqua Storm if he just holds the prize lead and then targets down either both of these Archeops or the Lugia VSTAR potentially with Raikou down the following line. That could be a way to win this game, and it seems like he's all in on this play. Actually, if Caleb has the Water Energy here, he doesn't even need to play this Energy Recycler, can just Mirage Gate and attach. Let's see if that's a potential option.
That is true. Again, huge hand. Should have a lot of options. A supporter has already been played. That means, fortunately, that means we can't use something like Clara to get energies back into hand. Looks like there's another Water Energy in the deck. We just use a second Mirage Gate to get that out as well there. And just like that, Dragonite is ready to go. Energy attachment also to the Comfey just to pay for that retreat cost. Things are lining up well. Again, they're going to go down to 2 prizes. And this is where you start switching gears. Maybe, you know what? Double Sableye onto an Archeops. That should be enough to close things out. But of course, the only thing you have to play around is the Class Stadium, which is already in play. I believe they only...
Just the 1 copy. Yep, that's it in the deck.
So, yeah, that might just have to be it. Double Sableye should be able to close things out, or even something like the Greninja into the Archeopses. Oh, sorry, Greninja into the Archeopses and then Sableye. Tried and true method of knocking those out for sure, and without Radiant Serena, yeah, very clean, as we do see the Dragonite into the active. Dragon's Gale coming once again. Debating when playing the Pokestop. Looks like we are going to do that. Does Caleb feel lucky? Are we going to draw 3 cards once again? Gonna have to see. Are we going to spin it? Are we playing some Pokemon Go here?
If it's down in play, might as well just see it go and spin. Top 3 cards. Any items to be there? Is it just going to be draw 3 again? No. Okay, come on.
It's the exact same thing, too, wasn't it?
I think it was the exact. It was the same 3 cards.
Double Mirage Gate.
He's not traveling. He's staying at the same Pokestop, waiting for it to refresh and just spinning it again.
That's true, and you know what? Those are the exact draws you need to have, you want to have if you want to become a Milwaukee Regional Champion. As we do see the Dragon's Gale for the knockout there onto the Urshifu. Back to Connor, does have the Lugia, but more important, this Lugia can't take a knockout. So what are we doing here?
I think it's going to be dealing with this Dragonite. Gotta take this energy out of play. Gotta neutralize the threat for now. This Messagosa means that any of these basic Pokemon can be found. It's going to be that Tyranitar V. Single Strike Crush is the only attack available in the deck that can take a knockout on the Dragonite. I believe the Single Strike energies are available. Can utilize 2 and a double turbo off the 2 Primal Turbo abilities. Pivot this Lugia VSTAR at the active, and we're in a very similar position that we were game 1. Except it feels like Caleb is closer and honing in, and at least Connor at this point is in a position where his Tyranitar doesn't get knocked out. And I think maybe this time, especially after you watched in game number 1, this Pokemon get knocked out without V-Guard, I think it's immediately put this down. And I think on top of this, Connor can disrupt the hand, playing Lumineon, finding Judge, and putting Caleb at a lower hand size, and that's the play. Judge, big knockout with Single Strike, Crush, and and hope your opponent can't get back on their feet and keep pace.
That is definitely the name of the game here. Again, judged a great equalizer, forcing both players here to shuffle their hands and draw 4 cards. And again, Caleb, we got to see it. He had so many things to work with. He had so many cards. And now, off that 4, has to find a way to have attackers to take the last 2 prizes of the game. Something something going for Connor, though. At least he's going to take 2 prizes here. Since Caleb did have to play back-to-back Vs, typically, when you're playing against Lost Box, you expect to knock out a Cramorant. You expect to take like 6 KOs sometimes if they only play the single prizes. But yeah, this was technically just back and forth, pseudo-legendary Pokemon, just taking knockouts. And there it is. We're going to see the single strike crush, discarding top 4 cards of Connor's hand.
2 big boys going at it. And this time, some more crucial resources for Connor will get discarded. Mainly that Urn of Vitality if you want to ever attack with Tyranitar again. You want to make sure you have those. As Caleb's saying, hey, you've got Mesagoza in play. I'm going to try flipping that as well. Does flip Tails, so won't be able to find any Pokemon out of the deck. What else is there to work with?
Right now,
he has the pivoting card.
So we should be able to flower selecting a good amount here. Easy choice, why not? Sending Battle VIP Pass into the Lost Zone. We're not going to need that. We have the retreat already with the Psychic Energy attached to the Comfey. We have the Switch card. So again, that's at least 6 cards you could potentially see. We have the Mirage Gate. We could attack with Radiant Greninja if we draw into a Psychic Energy or potentially another Mirage Gate. I believe both energy recyclers are in hand. There's some debate here. Do you use it now to try and draw into those water energies?
It's really weird. You're down 2, so I don't think you can afford to if you ever want to put a Kyogre in play. And Caleb's not forced to do anything at this point. He's got a 2-turn window in order to utilize Kyogre. There is that Lumineon in play, and the 1 copy of Collapse Stadium is gone. What is this choice between the flower selecting Escape Rope and 1 more card?
Just counting the deck there, still quite large. Again, it's the Pokestop and the Escape Rope. Again, Escape Rope, excuse me, is a great card, but I think Caleb wants to draw 3 once again.
So risky, though. What if you get rid of a piece like Clara?
If you get rid of...
is such a relevant piece depending on what Pokemon comes in the active spot the following turn. He's just going to be keeping the Pokestop, though. 1 more flower selecting can be used. I think really just looking for one of those Colress's experiments still in the deck. Does he find it? Battle Pass, easy choice, but what was the card you got off it? It was Kyogre.
Kyogre.
Okay.
All right, so might just have to be a pass here. Again, no energy in hand. That means we can't even use something like concealed cards to draw 2 more.
It's so risky with this Tyranitar in the active because Cragalanche could just ruin Caleb's day by discarding some relevant resources. Luckily, both the energy recycler are in the hand, so that's not too much of a concern, but everything else from there is a variable.
I mean, right now, again, Caleb's hand is pretty good. The Kyogre's in hand, the energy recyclers. The only thing scary probably is losing the Mirage Gate, potentially.
Yeah, I think 2 have been played at this point, so there's still 2 left in the deck.
I'd debate using the Pokestop here.
Oh.
If you can try and get it into your hand, that means it's safe from a Cragalanche.
It's scary, like... There is also a world where this Tyranitar moves out of the active and Lugia comes up, but it's so risky to put Lugia into the active spot here because then Raikou just takes the knockout. But it is actually just going to be the energy recycler, putting these energy cards back into the deck. What is Caleb plotting?
Maybe just hoping to draw into a water energy, because again, we're putting back 4 water energy. That kind of signifies he wants to draw into one of them. Yeah, you definitely do to try and utilize either Moonlight Shuriken or the Aqua Storm. But I don't think he can do anything else in the hand. Maybe you're just putting it back into the deck, hoping to draw into it.
So he does have Pokestop still in play, so maybe the idea is that next turn you have the option to Pokestop, and if you get rid of any of these energy cards, it's not a big deal because you can just put them back into the deck with something like Energy Recycler. And again, remember, Caleb only needs to knock out 1 of these Pokemon, and with that Lumineon in play, needs to just hit an Aqua Storm for 4. He might be spinning the actual wheel of the deck the following turn.
Maybe it was a... Oh, if you're thinking about maybe Caleb's playing it, yeah, just like you said, as a buffer, but for Cragalanche, because it wouldn't be too bad to lose energies off of Cragalanche.
That's true.
As Mesagoza was played there. I believe that was Tails, and we're just going to go ahead and Primal Turbo a couple of things.
This can make or break the game, what cards get discarded off Cragalanche. If too many resources, if something like Colress's Experiment, or there is the 1 copy of Mirage Gate in hand, but if too many resources get discarded off of this, I'm trying to see what cards would be like the absolute worst scenario. I think maybe Colress and Clara, what you don't want to see hit the discard pile, does open you up for a few more options. I guess losing those energies would also kind of suck, but you put them back there because there's worse cards that you'd rather not lose. So we'll see what they are. Suspense is killing me. Taking a knockout Cragalanche, 2 cards discarded. What are they? Clara and then the energy card, but that Clara I think is a pretty big deal.
I mean, I feel like that's okay because the support you want to play this turn is Chorus because you're going for the game here. It has to be Aqua Storm. It has to be Aqua Storm or bust. Messagoza being played. That could have thinned one more card, but looking at the hand, at least there's an energy. There's an energy plus the Kyogre. You can just bench that right now.
Do you ever risk it and try to Pokestop first? I feel like it'd be like an absolute fear of mine to Pokestop and then miss the Colress, but at the same time, what other option do you have? Kyogre getting benched. This is the last opportunity to use it, the last turn of the game.
And Mirage Gate being played. Again, not only does it power up Kyogre, it thins 2 cards from the deck. Looking at the deck here, there's still 1 Colress.
1 Colress does have 3 pivoting options in hand, so can utilize 2 flower selecting abilities. I think it really might just come down to, does Colress get found off of one of these 2 flower selectings if possible?
We're going to have to see here again.
He needs to get through this deck as well to be able to pretty much guarantee the Aqua Storm is going to hit 4 energy cards.
And here it is, first flower selecting, no Colress.
It is still the energy card, so that can be concealed carded away. Does already have the energy card in hand as well. And I think that's probably the best choice to do is just use concealed cards first, see what these next 2 cards are going to be.
Switch card and escape
pivoting cards, so that means you could safely use this next flower selecting. How many cards? 6 in there, so there's a 1/3 chance that you find Colrus off of this.
Do you Pokestop first?
He's going to do it.
Discard the,
oh, no!
It was the next card! It was the next one. How many cards left in the deck?
But
There's 3.
Can he still get there? I think it might just be a risk at this point. You can look at these next 2 cards, leave them there.
It's fine. Even if you only put 4 energy into the deck, you're doing 200 damage. That's knockout on Archeops.
I think that's there then. If there's the 4 energy in the discard pile, and I think there is, has the switch card, can bring this Kyogre up. And there it is, Energy Recycler plus the attachment, and that will be the game. Let's count them together. 4 energy cards, and Aqua Storm. Oh, is there one more? Let's make sure we're good.
I think maybe we're debating attachment already for turn.
No, there is no attachment.
Yeah, there was no attachment for turn. This is fine.
And that's it. The 3 energy can knock out both Archeops too. And Caleb Gedemer advancing into top cut, making another top cut appearance, trying to win a tournament with this Lost Zone deck.
Not too bad. Ethan, that was probably the fastest Lost Zone match I've ever seen. Again, Caleb just playing it absolutely